Why the fuck won't this sell?
First line of our podcast.
Oh, we're live. Someone asked Fidelity why they won't sell my shares of Fidelity Freedom 2065.
I want you. I want you bad.
I just want to sell all of them.
I think I'm slightly above you still this time. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. You got your lights too. You're slowly catching up. It's nice.
Yeah, camera's not going to be for a while. Probably not till I start getting it to film for like my, for social media and stuff. But I guess I can figure out a way to hook my phone. That's probably their camera. But
Yeah, it's kind of I've done the whole phone as a camera thing, and it's all right. It's a trade-off, but because then too, like sometimes I've forgotten to put do not disturb on sometimes, and then someone's called me, and then I lost the whole recording, and then like I couldn't see it right because I had the back camera on, so I couldn't see someone call me, but it stopped the recording because someone called my phone, and then I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrendous. What's up, Mr. Takabi? Hello.
old platform.
I don't know if we have Instagram. I don't know if we have our chat. Instagram chat isn't coming through on Restream. That's interesting. So I think it's just Rumble chats that if you guys chat on Rumble, I can see Instagram though. So thanks you guys for commenting there. But today, especially if you're a man, is going to be a pretty interesting topic. If you're a woman, well, you're about to learn a lot about how our society works. This is going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, Ascended Podcast 12.
Yep.
Dose. All right. And this one's going to be a little bit depressing. I'm going to do this Andrew Tate style where I make a bold claim and then we back it up. And hopefully you guys understand where we're coming from. Preface to this, it's going to sound like I'm attacking a lot of you. And if it does, that means that maybe you're the person I'm trying to get the message across to. Maybe you are somewhat, recognizing the truth in my words. So I'm not trying to attack you. I'm not trying to call anybody out, but I want you to recognize if you feel personally attacked by the things I'm saying, understand that that's because it's happening to a lot of people. And if you can correct these things, if you can notice them before anybody else, you can make adjustments based on them, you're going to have a huge success. So title of today's episode 12, You Were Castrated Without a Blade, the Systemic Erasure of Dangerous Men. So here's the opening. First of all, we have to acknowledge the fact that this has happened. People didn't need swords. It's not like back in the day, right? You're not a eunuch. They didn't just neuter your masculinity and take it out of anywhere. They used screens. They used technology. They used modern luxuries. They didn't take your balls, right? They took your mission. And now you basically wonder now why you're just anxious, why you're addicted, why you feel like you have to make $1 million this week, why you feel like you're losing, why there's people ahead of you that are fitter, that are the higher performing, that are making more money than you, and you're just kind of lost in your own mind. That happens a lot. And if you've related to that at all, I think today's going to be a great episode. The war on masculinity as a concept is real, and it's more real than it's been probably in any other point in history, because now we have this massive global communication system that can broadcast these agendas to people. And that's not even like conspiratorial. That's just a fact. You see things, your algorithm reinforces your beliefs and keeps you deeper into polarized thoughts. And it's not, feminism, right? It's not just like soy or TikTok that's ruining things. None of those really are necessarily an enemy or have a dramatic direct effect on what's going on. Feminism, I'm not going to say that's a bad principle either. I think that there's a lot of good strides that have been made in society because of that. I'm not even going to call out like a specific ideology or principle. It's that the world no longer needs dangerous men. And so it systematically destroyed the conditions that created them. You are the byproduct of that destruction. And the point I want to make today is you don't have to stay there. There's this big misconception we're going to talk about how men have been turned away from aggression because it's been seen as bad. But in a lot of ways, that's what makes us masculine to begin with, in the right way. So modern society turned you into essentially a docile consumer. Because if you were dangerous, I think you'd agree with this, Anthony, they couldn't control you a lot of times. I'll get to the question here in a second. I have one for you, but the first thing I want to note as we transition into this first point of discussion is that society, as a fact, right, it doesn't need hunters anymore. We're not just like chasing down deer to survive. Like maybe there's a few people in Wyoming, right, that have 150 acres that are just hunting to live off the land. That'd be an amazing life, honestly. Love just to have a farm, like to be able to live off the land and stuff. But most people are going to the grocery store, right? Society needs obedient, tax-paying, docile men who sit still, they swipe their credit card quietly, and they die slowly, a lot of times by things that are out of their control. So ancient men had value, right? Because he was violent, he was resourceful, and he was willing to kill to make a point, right? And this wasn't even that long ago. You watched Peaky Blinders, right? You saw them literally gangbanging in the streets to survive, and that was common, right? It was a dangerous world even 120 years ago, and now it's quickly transitioned to a point where safety is kind of the almost guaranteed effect, and it's very, very rare to run into violence like that. The modern man's told to be nice, and don't be aggressive because emotion is strength. And we were raised to believe that masculinity is suspicious unless it's neutered. And it's kind of like this, foreign power that we have to keep reined in. So, Anthony, here's my question. Do you ever feel that the modern world rewards the softest guy in the room? Like being agreeable is like your new survival trait. I know kind of we're both in the corporate setting, so I want to hear how you handle that take.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you say the world, I think I'm speaking more towards the Western world because I don't really have experience what it's like other than what I hear, on the news, on social media about how people interact in other parts of the world. I know that in a lot of other religious cultures, it's not that way. But in our culture, we live in the United States, and it's funny you brought up the example of where we work in a corporate culture, but I'll just use that as an example. Like there's a lot of times when I'll hear conversations be brought up about certain topics that are, may or may not be politicized by society. But there's people at work talking about it. And I'm like, my initial reaction to share what I actually believe about the issue or subject is to not say anything or be extremely careful about how I say the thing because I don't want to be viewed as someone who, well, first of all, I don't want to lose my job. That's, that's really the main driving factor. But two, like I don't want to be ostracized. Like I feel like I can't even voice the way that I truly feel about things in any setting really at all, especially with people that I don't know that well. And honestly, like I know to a pretty decent degree a lot of the people at work, but still I can't say anything because there are people around me that I know would have a negative view of me and would escalate it to be a further problem for me if I was to actually be truthful in what I said. And I think that's a reflection of what most men are experiencing. Well, all men really are experiencing today in society.
I don't have the data here either. I want to know if what the point was. Maybe it was after the Industrial Revolution, or maybe it was in like the out of the Depression, right, getting into industrial America. But like, what was the point where it started to matter seriously, like what you said and how that impacted your professional career? Maybe in like after World War II, maybe in like the 50s on, because like like right, if you're a peasant working the land under a noble lord that is just you're an indentured servant, right? It's not like you couldn't just say something, right? Like most of the time, it's not going to matter. But also, you didn't have social media exist like it did today, so the effects are kind of hard to compare. But I don't know the exact point in history why that started being a big thing. I think like in the 70s, right? We didn't have like social media. We didn't even really have much of the modern internet yet. So I guess kind of right. There's a lot of workplace gossip and stuff. Maybe as of the 2000s, it's kind of been a pretty recent thing of you have to be careful about what you say in the workplace. And then therefore, because word spreads, we start limiting what we say in the office because we're worried about our company looking bad and stuff. And I think a lot of times it's more about the company than it actually is the individual, right? Because we still have freedom of speech, but it seems so limited in those particular settings, arguably for a good reason, right? But in some ways, I think too much. I think there's a fine line, and sometimes it gets walked too aggressively.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if I had to guess as maybe one speculation as to what the turning point would have been, I think it's less of a specific turning point, but I think it's just society's overcorrection for mistakes made in the past by certain groups of people, certain instances in which, like we take the civil rights movement, we go from, the group of people being enslaved in our country for a lot of years, to the civil rights movement, people still are being treated poorly. And then we flip the script, and now I don't know that I should say we flip the script, but I think society kind of has a way of overcorrecting to a point where the other side now can't even say anything about it or reference. Like even me just saying this right now as a concept, I know would offend a lot of people, saying that it's maybe not necessarily the greatest thing ever to just completely overcorrect for past mistakes. But I think and then we do the same thing for women's rights. We do the same thing and like I said, a lot of these things have helped made great strides in society today. Have helped push us towards better achievements as a whole. But then it becomes like because diversity and inclusion didn't used to mean what it means today, and like what we see on TikTok and what we see, as people, starting rages about it, or fits of rage about it. And like I said, I think that's just an overcorrection. I think that it initially starts as something that says, hey, we should probably make a change in society in a whole. We make the change, and then either strategically that change is leveraged to make things harder for the working class, for the middle and lower class to divide us. That could be seen as some sort of conspiracy, or it's just kind of the way that things go. Like we just tend to, I mean, that's the way politics has always worked. You just move from extreme to extreme over time. So I don't know. I think that probably has something to do with it.
I think we're also living in an unprecedented time, right? The digital age has never existed before. And therefore, like before, right, you were in the field working, right, as just like a farmhand, and you could say whatever you wanted and those words just vanished into the air. But now they're logged, they're documented, and they can be pulled back up. So having a record of that can be the same as like putting a digital resume together, because it shows the things you believe in. And therefore, I think arguably most employers would look at the podcast we're doing here, and some of them would have issues, right? Because they'd say that we're talking too much about like social issues, and we're not just like going home, shutting the fuck up, and working out and going to sleep and repeating. We're actually like challenging the way society functions. But I think a lot of places, right? It's a curve, and I think we've hit that peak in the curve. I think you saw with this administration come in where they started rolling back a lot of those policies, and we went from the high point of containment to starting to loosen back up on those things. I'm not saying like there's a perfect spot where we're supposed to be, but I'm just saying you recognize throughout history that social reform has different patterns, like you brought up, and we're just at that point in the curve where it's probably trending down again, but it'll probably rise back up. It'll probably be very restrictive again, but I think we're starting to lean more toward open speech. You've seen that with Elon taking over X, and kind of making that the main focus. But at the same time, too, it doesn't necessarily mean every platform's open, right? There's a lot of things that go on. There's still a lot of things logged. There's still profiles being built behind the scenes on people. So just be careful and don't think that like there's still free speech, right? That's never, as much as that is an amendment, there's still data behind what you say and what you do. So I want to get back and transition to like the point of masculinity on this. So again, we talked about how therefore the softest speaking guy is kind of the like most rewarded one in the room, right? The one getting recognized, the one that's the most agreeable to the rules. And so to back that up, right? Partially testosterone levels, we've seen those drop by 50% in the past 40 years, naturally making us less aggressive, less willing to biologically stand up and challenge things and fight for our position. The flight reaction or the like conform reaction is more of the standard. There's less fight. Grip strength, which is a crazy stat that I threw in, was down 24%, and sperm counts are plummeting. So grip strength is usually like, there's a test that it measures like muscle density in men, and it was actually one of the most interesting stats used to measure how muscular the average guy was. And so they said that the average guy is getting on average a quarter less strong than they were 20 years ago. And sperm counts plummeting. Like I said, more men under 30 are celibate than at any other time in recorded history. 61% of young men say they feel purposeless, without a purpose in their life. So I know, Anthony, we both brought up the fact it's like, damn, we feel like we're not moving fast enough. We feel like the business isn't just taking off. Almost 2/3 of people are in the exact same spot. Like at least probably when you take into actual effect, people that haven't even thought about these things yet, like a lot of people are feeling like they're just not doing enough. Where does this lead? And this has to do with the digital age, because we didn't see this, right? There's some factor in the equation that didn't exist 30 years ago. And I really do, if I had to put my hypothesis out, and we can test this a little bit with data I've came up with, but I think it's because technology allows information to spread, which means that sure, ways to get rich and to make money online, like we have Ascend and things like that, that spreads fast. At the same time, you have the social anxiety, the FOMO, the pressure of not being enough spreading. And I think that, right, we weigh negatives more than we weigh positives. I think that's weighing on people more than the inspiration to changes. And that's why we kind of need to do podcasts like this. I don't know your thoughts on that, but
Yeah, podcasts are, I mean, something. So, well, I guess that's a different point you're trying to make. I would think another thing that if I had to put my hypothesis in, you mentioned yours, I would say it's because of the age of technology we live in. Instant gratification is also kind of the norm. I don't think that. I mean, you can start naming any of the things that a man needs or desires. Like men's lust is controlled by the porn industry. That's instant on a computer, on a phone, whenever you want it. Let's see what else. Like feelings of inclusion, feeling included is like a basic human need, right?
yes, sir.
And you made that point about how men are not getting that by constantly seeing what other people are doing and achieving, and they feel like they're out of it. But I think that men don't really have to build anything anymore. Like they don't have to work for something. They don't have to have a dream. They don't have to fulfill the American dream, as they say, and like work hard to go build yourself a house and build yourself something that you and your family can live on for and pass it down generations and build a legacy for yourself. Because why would you do that when there's just all this nice cool stuff you can gamble like right on your phone? You don't even have to go to a casino. You don't even have to like find a woman. There's women online. And it's not the same thing. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not suggesting that's even close to the same, but for about 30 seconds, I think for a lot of men that have no other guiding forces in their life, it kind of feels like the same thing, and that just becomes the norm, because it's like, well, that took me no work and I'm instantly gratified and I don't have a need for it right now. And then the next day comes and, hey, that felt nice yesterday. Let me just hop back on. And then we develop, addictions to our phones. We start seeing screen times going up 6, 7, 8 hours a day.
Well, I mean, dopamine used to be earned, right? Like you didn't get it unless you actually took down the kill, or you found like a patch of berries, right? Like it was something so simple.
Yeah.
And now like you're overdosing on it. Of course, we didn't change, our brains didn't change. And it's like now you get it by scrolling 7 TikToks, and then you don't need to go do anything. So I
That
even need to read the fact of PubMed 2023, men with high porn use report lower self-esteem, higher anxiety, less desire for real intimacy. Like you've heard it time and time again, but then I think like everyone knows this, right? But the real question is, why can't you stop? Well, it's kind of in the reason it's happening, right? It's because you get so much dopamine that it's a loop, right? It's a paradox. The more you get, like the harder it is to break, and therefore
Yep.
you want more of it.
Yep.
It's an addiction. That's how any addiction works.
It's just like any other chemical. Like you grow a tolerance to caffeine, or you grow a tolerance to nicotine, whatever it is. Dopamine's no different. I mean, your receptors in your brain get overflowed, and then that becomes the new normal, and you need more and more and more to feel the same way about it.
Yeah. It's a fleeting high too, because
Yeah.
it doesn't dopamine. That's why dopamine, chasing dopamine, right? And I've studied a lot of philosophy, and that's obviously known as hedonism, when you just chase pleasure and you try to maximize pleasure in life. The issue is that is fleeting, and therefore the pursuit never stops. It's a very short burst. So therefore you're never complacent. You don't find necessarily a peace in your life even until you die, right? You could be laying on your deathbed, but say, there's this video game I want to play, and therefore you will die not having technically achieved that philosophy. Whereas if you're stoic, right, you could say that, well, I didn't need that anyway. I was complacent with what I had. And therefore you tend to live a much happier existence. And you guys know this too, but it's more like you don't know what to do about it. But thankfully we'll kind of talk through this stuff here. This leads me into my next like sub point, and again, kind of a challenge I want to put out. But masculinity was outsourced to fantasy. And so my take is now most men cosplay strength. They're not actually presenting it. For example, right? You wear a Rolex, but you can't actually throw a punch, right? Your arm's the size of a twig, but you have this big old watch on your wrist. And then you read Goggins, right? But you can't run a mile and do what he's actually saying. You'll sell ambition, but you're addicted to comfort, right? You'll be one of those fake gurus. And then modern men are just cosplaying kings with peasant habits. They say, oh, you need to ice bath 3 times a day. Well, are you? And I'll admit this. I've done the same thing, right? I've said that there's good habits. You need to like work out every single day. I'll skip a workout. But the thing is though, that most of the time I'm still living up to that. It's the people that just fake the aesthetic, showing people that it's their lifestyle when it really isn't, and just don't even train at all. That's the problem, right? Sure, you can make mistakes, but I think some people confuse reading books, right, or just grinding out a 12-hour day as masculinity as a whole. But deep down, they're still avoiding like hard conversations and deep relationships and actual power. So kind of the question I have for you is like, what do you think is causing that? Why do you think, and let's back up one more second here. Why do you think that most men think that the ice baths are what's making them hard, when in reality, sometimes like having a difficult conversation with your partner, to me, that feels even harder, right? Sometimes when you have to admit you're wrong, do things like that kind of gets like blown off. Those like soft masculine skills, rather than just the hard, like beat yourself with a stick in the gym type mindset. I think a lot of times, like, do you think that gets like thrown away too much, that people don't even focus on that stuff? Or
Yeah, I think you almost answered your own question asking it, actually, in the sense that I think people focus on doing the ice baths, or the morning routine, or the whatever their daily motivation from David Goggins, because that's actually, of the most difficult things in your life to do, those are probably the easiest. Of the things that you think are going to change you, are going to make you a better man, make you strong, make you worthy of the things you call yourself, those are the absolute easiest things to do. It's not difficult at all. To like mentally, maybe, like it's going to be cold. You'd rather be scrolling than read this book by David Goggins. But that's actually like 2 to 3 minutes of your effort that requires no thinking, really, is far easier than like, and I have a wife too, than trying to be man enough to think past my initial rage and frustration in certain situations, and like solve the problem in a way that is coherent for her as well, because women don't think the same. You know what I mean? Like that's a soft skill that you brought up earlier. But even like just applying yourself as a whole, instead of just like, I say this all the time to clients, to people I talk to friends. It's so easy to just do all of the preparatory work, or do the things that are like your daily habits that end up being like something to do for 2 weeks you never pick up again. Like I said, because they're easy. Those are not difficult things to do. Like the actual difference, the only difference really between people that are living the life you say that you live, or that you want to live, and you, is like actually doing the things that get you there, not the things that you think, that represent what it is that you want to be.
Pareto's rule, yeah, that
Yeah.
80%. The 80% is the 20%. That's the whole Pareto's rule. Like you only have to do 20% a lot of times, and that's 80% of your progress. You're focused on that 20% that isn't effective, that doesn't lead to anything. That looks like 80% of the work. It's 80% of the tasks, but that only accomplishes 20%. And you think you're moving, but I've done that so many times, right? Where it's like, I was like, I'm gonna start a drop shipping store, and I spend like a week designing the website. Never actually publish it, but I'm like, I'm an entrepreneur. It's just like this mental masturbation loop of, oh yeah, I'm making progress, but what did you list it? Are you advertising it? Are you getting in people's DMs? Those are the hard conversations we have to feel uncomfortable. And sure, the ice baths help reinforce that, but like, it's not the same as just talking to someone. It's not.
Yeah.
I think that happens a lot with dating too. By the way, I wanted to show this. Here's a picture of me in basic. You can see me in the back there.
Fire.
My bald head, but
Yeah.
good times. So like these hard things, right? These gritty moments, they remind you of the pain that exists physically, but there's a lot of mental pain too many of you guys are afraid of achieving, just because, I'm not gonna lie, when I did the obstacle course there, it was like my brain was hurting more than my body a lot of times, because I was like, I just don't want, my legs hurt, I don't want to keep running up this hill, but they're gonna yell at me if I stop, so I just gotta keep going. And right, they have to supplement that. I was very grateful for basic, right, because they had to yell at me until I had the discipline to yell at myself. That was a whole level of performance I didn't have coming out of high school. In high school I was just coasting by, right, but eventually they kind of lit that flame to say, okay, now we're going to transition you in. We need you to be able to like be a self-starter, and that kind of stays with you when you have the right education. I forgot the point I was going to make with that, but it was I think it's important to do both, right? Too many times it's you don't focus on the actual like hard feeling things, you just focus on the physically hard things. But mentally hard is a lot of the things that move the needle, right? Because you don't need to be, unless you're literally a fitness trainer like Anthony. A lot of times, and even in your case, just being physically fit isn't going to make you money.
Right.
You got to talk.
There's dudes with way worse, and I don't have a crazy physique, let it be known, but there's dudes with worse physiques that make a lot more than I do. So
Yeah, and so it's about those people had the balls to go out and like be uncomfortable in the DMs and maybe get called, hey, you look like kind of a skinny kind of bitch, right? Like, I wouldn't buy from you, but a lot of other people said, you know what, like, I like your confidence, I kind of want the same confidence. And there's so many other ways to swing that. Hamza, right?
Yep.
Love the guy, right? But too many times I think there's this, what survivorship bias is.
Mhm.
The plane, right, that comes in where they're like, oh, these planes survived, but it was really, so they only patched those parts, but it was the parts of the plane that they didn't see that made the plane go down, if you guys weren't familiar. But like, the things in your life you're not paying attention to are actually the things that cause the biggest effect. You're focused on the wrong things because they seem like what's important, but you're losing because of the things you didn't pay attention to. So I think a lot of times going online, right, just looking at red pill content, and I love the idea of making yourself better, but then when all they talk about is these guys that are like heartbroken, right, that go into the gym, that go on the like revenge tour, and those guys a lot of times will get into content creation because they went through a hard heartbreak and they wanted to show their ex, show the world that they were doing better. And those are the guys that turn into these like red pill masculinity gurus, right? And honestly, that's probably the people with enough emotional damage to push themselves forward to be successful. The people that are already secure will say, I don't really care if YouTube does good or bad because I'm already fine as it is. It's the people that are traumatized, right, that usually end up making it. So typically when you're looking at red pill content, you're looking at the survivorship bias percentage of the men who have really gotten themselves fucked up. And so they usually tend to have a very aggressive stance toward women. And therefore, they teach you the only way to get more women or to be more successful is to get in the ice bath. And none of it usually has to do with being a good communicator, listening to drama, right? A lot of things like that you will probably have to do a lot of days with your wife to keep your relationship good. But you don't learn that if you just watch people like Hamza all day, because to him, it's like, well, I'll just be jacked and I'll get whoever I want naturally. I don't have to be a good speaker or persuasive or anything like that too. And I think that's a big misconception too. It's important to do both.
Yeah. What I'll say to add to that is that I think another thing to consider is that spending so much of your time consuming the ideas of other people is just not good for you in general. And like, I would just challenge, if you feel like we've been describing you at all in the past like 5 minutes talking about this subject, like just try like when was the last, Tate says this, not, this isn't like, this is just something that he said that stuck with me. I didn't just come up with this, but like, when was the last time you had an original thought that was like unique to you? And ever since, bro's busting out the chicken, but I remember like seeing him, I don't even remember how long, it's probably been like 2 years since he said that, but I still think about it all the time. And I remember at the time being like,
Can you repeat that? Like the quote?
the quote, yeah, Andrew Tate said sometime like 2 years ago, maybe, that he like questioned his viewers in a video when the last time they had an original thought was. Like, when was the last time you came up with an idea that like, that wasn't a surface level idea, like, oh, you know what, it would be cool if I bought this thing for my, like, no. I mean like an idea that propelled you forward in like your progression in this life, or like an idea that meant something to you or that could define who you are and what you believe and what your values are that are unique to you. And I thought about it that night, and I like couldn't think of maybe but two things maybe. And I still think about it all the time. But the point I'm trying to make here is that not only is it not really as relatable as you think it is when you're just watching people's, experience online, it's also not really healthy for you to just adopt every idea you hear that sounds like it aligns with the other 12 ideas you just heard last week, from the same perspective, just because this celebrity said it, or because it sounds masculine, or it sounds like you're an alpha male. It's like you should be capable of like coming up with your own thoughts, coming up with your own way of thinking about how the world works. Obviously, like none of us are, it's anymore probably, like none of us are probably coming up with some sort of new philosophy, but that's not what I'm asking. Like all I'm asking is to just use the information presented to you as nothing but that information, and not as just a guideline for how you want to live, and for how you should live, I guess I should say. Come up with something on your own, you know what I mean? It's, as a man, like that's just part of, in my idea, like being masculine is having the critical thinking ability to think through all situations and how you live your life for yourself.
And again, guys, we're not like saying that like you're an idiot if you just sit around watching Andrew Tate or watching Hamza. I think they're great men that have achieved so much in their life and have been testaments to the fact that if you truly have something you believe in, like in their minds, they're both 100% right. And to a lot of us too, it feels generally like they're putting out the right message. I will say, you need to be very critical all the time. As much as you hear great messages and as much as you think just watching their videos alone is going to fix your situation, kind of like what you were saying too, but there's a difference between empirical knowledge, which is knowledge of action, and then theoretical knowledge or conceptual knowledge by understanding, right? So you're only practicing conceptual knowledge when you watch a YouTube video on how to pick up girls, right? A lot of teenage guys I know will go through that phase where you'll be like, oh, I'm going to watch all these like texting tip videos and stuff and get better game with women and stuff. And they like think they're cheating the system. I see those comments a lot on videos. It's like, well, these tips don't work. Like I set my timer for 25 minutes so I didn't look desperate and she didn't text me back. It's like, well, okay, well, every person you're talking to is different. Some people like want to text you right away, some people don't. And so there's a difference between that, right, and empirical knowledge where you've texted 400 women, right? And so you'll pick up the pattern of like, oh, she's giving me really dry responses. She probably doesn't want to talk right now, so we'll just talk later, right? Those are things you have to just experience. And when you try applying the same logic, thinking that just like pulling something out of a textbook and putting it in is going to guarantee your success, well, then there'd be one textbook for every subject of matter in the world, right? You have to read a lot. You have to get a lot of opinions. I wouldn't even say listen to me right now, or Anthony, really. This podcast is just a suggestion based on a lot of knowledge that we've experienced that could potentially be helpful. But you should watch a lot of other videos. Don't just watch us to learn and get a well-rounded perspective, because some of what I'm saying is right. I might be making mistakes too and saying something wrong. But if you watch 10 different podcasters on this, you're going to start to realize the trends of the things that are matching up. And that's really what you stick to. And I've just seen that to be more successful. Go out there and practice, right? Because you might spend, what if you spent a year, right? Just let's say you get your heart broken. A lot of guys can relate to this. You spend like 18 months saying, I'm going to lock in. I'm going to just build my business. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get insanely shredded. You look like the next Mr. Olympia, right? But then you go up and talk to a girl and you sound like, no shade, C-Bone, right? He's like, oh, but he's awkward, right? A little bit. I mean, I love the guy. He's huge. I want to look like him, but he just like, when you spend so much time doing one skill and that's your whole life, you give up a little bit of the other skills, right? Like he wasn't going out to bars and drinking where you kind of pick up those social skills. Arguably, he's doing something much more productive for himself, but it is always a trade-off. And so you have to understand kind of that you have to practice these things. You can't just watch a video and think you got it all. And that's where, again, I want to give a quick plug for Ascend, our free community and our space, just because we're trying to build a space where you guys can interact with each other in any realm of life and just meet people that have had that knowledge, so you can meet more people aligned with your goals, because that's kind of where it starts. But I'm trying not to yap as much on these podcasts. That's why I brought out the chicken teriyaki. So I don't know if you want to comment on that. I'm gonna bring out the chicken teriyaki.
I could bring out the beef and sweet potato here in a couple bites.
As long as you're not munching right in the mic. You did that before, but do you have anything to say on that, or?
No, I don't know. I don't think I have anything to add.
Okay, so I'll just stop eating then.
Well, I mean, there was a. Go ahead. Oh, I know what to say. Shout out Sam Solik for joining CBOM in the Gymshark team, bro. As of today, that was fire. There was a lot of speculation on this is me. After I just told you to like get your own personality and stop watching all these influencers, there's me drooling over Sam Solik and CBOM. But yeah, everybody has their interests. But you know what we're trying to say. All we're trying to say is like just be a critical thinker, man.
You know all those videos of like Sam Solik where he's like somebody's cosplaying him and he's like Yeah, he's with like some socially awkward, right? Again, say another example, right? Like he's done nothing but go to the gym late at night. A lot of his buddies, right, would go to the bars, they go to like the frat parties and stuff, hang out with women and like practice their social skills. But he was kind of just locked in, which arguably made him famous, right? You have to do that. But then obviously you're trading that in for some sort of like social life, right? It's like the kids that are homeschooled, right? A lot of times they could probably get a better education than in school, right? Because they're more dialed in. They don't have the like other distractions going on, but they're socially not as comfortable with other people. So that actually hurts you in life too, right? Because we've heard that emotional intelligence is kind of like another required skill to work in offices, to have good relationships with your team and things like that. It's kind of a necessary skill. So not necessarily something to ignore, but in those short phases, I would say where you're locked in and you have to go through that grind season, you can cut out social skills for a little bit, right? But understand that they're still important to business if you want to make money. I don't think there's a business where you, maybe stock trading would be the only business where you just wouldn't need social skills, but arguably you still kind of do, right? Because you gotta, what are you gonna, if you're only gonna trade, maybe sure, but if you're gonna do a course on it, if you're gonna build a community, most of the time when you expand, you have to interact with people. If you want to go apply for more funding, you have to talk to somebody to give you a loan, right?
I mean, aside from just how it applies to whatever your work endeavor is, like, matter of fact, we're not put on this earth to just associate with nobody. Like, we're social creatures. We have been since our inception. You know, like there's no way around it. Like it's a basic human need to fit in, to have a group of people. Some would argue like to be loved, things like that. So and you'll never like, I don't know. I've always had the mindset. I shouldn't say always. Since in my adult life, I've had the mindset that it's if I had to talk to 1,000 people and only one of them turned out to be somebody like Caleb, for example, it would have been worth like talking to 1,000 people. You know what I mean? But you don't get that if you don't put yourself out there. And like you said, but you look like Ryan Gosling right now with the lighting. I don't know what it is. That one.
I get that all the time. I don't know. I get that all the time. It's always, it's kind of crazy too because it's always who it is, and it's so weird because it's like, you know who you look like, and I literally say that and they're like, yep. And so I don't know what I'm doing, if it's just, I don't know if it's my hair or something or the way I dress, or I don't know.
It was just that one second. It was like almost like a purplish lighting when you backed up for a second. I don't know.
That brings me into segment 4, kind of my next, not that point, right? What Anthony was saying. And I appreciate the compliment. It's the last battlefield that you will ever experience in your life. I might even go slightly wrong on this. But I think the most important one that's going to shape how your life success is kind of your business and social skills. And most men are just entering those unarmed, right? To make a living, to be able to provide sustenance to your family, kind of arguably one of your biological roles as a man, like going out to hunt. That's how you make money. It's kind of the modern equivalent, because we're not just like barter system going and killing a stag, right, and taking it to the butcher shop. That's not how that works. So money is kind of like going out to hunt, and therefore to be an efficient man, to go out and secure that, you need to learn how to be good at business. And that's kind of my point. Entrepreneurship, if you're the soft man who never got to bleed once in their life, then it's war. It's true war. It's like getting thrown onto Normandy and you're seeing the like cannons ring and you freeze up, right? You get that shell shock because you've never seen anything close to that in your life. But most of them like bring LLCs and just start the company to make that like mental masturbation of, I'm getting a business done, right? I set up the paperwork. You bring that into the battlefield that requires a lot of times conviction, code. In our particular minds, I would say combat readiness in some ways. You have to be ready for the fight. You have to understand that it's going to feel stressful. You sometimes, even if it's just throwing a number out, saying I charge $200 a month, that takes some balls, right? Because you're putting a value behind you, standing on business, and you're hoping they accept it. But most men in business are kind of dopamine junkies in disguise. I was kind of thinking about, I'll take your thoughts first on this, but what do you think the biggest ways that being that like dopamine porn addict, like junkie kind of weak-mindedness translates into business? And how do you think it affects your business performance primarily?
Well, I think it will first and foremost like degrade your attention span and how well you focus on a singular task. I mean, that's kind of integral. We're just talking like basic building blocks to setting up your business and like actually accomplishing something with it. If your dopamine receptors are so fried to a point where like you can't just focus on a singular task for longer than, as long as it takes to scroll to your next TikTok, you're not going to build anything worthwhile. But then also like I think we've already answered this. Like there's just no way for you to have any sort of meaningful relationships, build a network, get in touch with people that are going to that aren't going to take advantage of you, find ways to leverage, relationships you've built to help both of you in the process. Like you said earlier, how are you going to go convince an investor to give you a lump sum of money if you have no other option right now? You can't get a loan because your credit score sucks. Like, what are you going to do? Like, the answer is you kind of just have to break free from that, in my opinion. Like, I don't see in which somebody very successful in business? Like for example, like name one person you can think of that owns a successful business that's like addicted to their phone and is always just on their phone. Like you can't. I mean, people probably don't know a ton of business owners as it is, but the answer is you won't find one because there's better things to do with their time. Like it's just degrading.
They clearly haven't played Clash of Clans then. So.
Clash Royale. Everybody on Wall Street's playing Clash Royale in between their
Because being a monster. Yeah. So.
yeah. It's just I don't know. I think it's a basic core tenet for me of what masculinity means in my eyes to be able to effectively build a network. And I'm not just meaning in business, but you should have close ties with people around you. You should know people that you've helped that would help you, that mean something to you, and that as the Bible would say, is a way for iron to sharpen iron. That's what it is and it's taken me kind of a long time to get to this point where I don't have a large circle of friends, but like the 2, 3, 4 guys that I do have close to me, I gain something almost every time I speak to them, or they're people that I can bounce around ideas with and not just menial subjects like, like the next episode of Love Island, or, like what certain influencers are doing online. It's like, none of that really matters. Like what matters more than anything is like what you're doing here with the one life you're given.
Yeah.
Maybe that was kind of a tangent from what you asked, but it just made me think of a few things.
Definitely gonna butcher this Marcus Aurelius quote. I think it's Marcus Aurelius. It's imagine you're dead and like everything up to your life is you've died essentially. And now you just were born today. Go, like, what are you doing? Like, now like, let's say that was all just a write-off. What are you doing with the rest of it? Like, well, what are you making of today? So it kind of like challenges you, that thought process, to say, what is the true one thing I'm going for? Understanding that I've had all this time to learn and experience things. And like, what am I doing with the rest of my time here on earth? Like, if I had to take all the experience, right? Because we never have, even when you're 80, right? Sure, you have all that experience, but you have little time left. So we have to kind of do that regularly and figure out, based on everything I know and everything I've been, what is that thing I'm going for? And if it's not something purely meaningful that keeps you driven out of bed every day, then it's going to be very hard. And again, I think it's like, if you're a degenerate and you've traded Forex, right? The way I look at it is kind of just like math. You have to look at how one thing is trending and then the other thing, and the difference between them is likely how much value there is, right? If one currency is going down and one's going up, you're going to make more money. If they're both going the same direction, you're not really going to make anything. Right? If they're both going toward each other, you're probably not going to do very well. But let's compare that to dopamine. And I think I always kind of use this example. When dopamine is now so easy that the algorithm knows that the next reel will give you dopamine, then literally one swipe of your finger is dopamine. So it's very, very little moving, this one. And the amount of, therefore, respective distance you have to travel to get dopamine out of business is so much further, because you have weeks, right? 92% of businesses fail in the first 2 years, according to Forbes. And so you have to probably start 20 different side hustles before you find one that's successful, truly, truly massively successful. And so it's just years of time even. And so how many people aren't going to choose the one that's, in a really great position? And when they have to climb this entire gap, or I guess going this way, right, to do the hard business, it's getting increasingly harder and harder. It's more competitive in niches, and dopamine's getting further and further beneficial to people and easier to get. So crossing that bridge, that gap, is getting so much harder, and especially staying with. So I think, again, if you're so easy to give in to these pleasures, then you're gonna fight a lot of demons the first time you try. So it's either you strengthen yourself beforehand and then you try to cross the gap, but then you lose time, or you don't try at all and then you lose all the opportunity and meaning in life of pursuing something that's actually worth it. Or you have to do what most of us do, which is the third way of doing it both at the same time, going to the gym, working on yourself, learning lessons as you fail. And that saves you the most time a lot of times, and it builds a meaningful journey on the way there. And it's not easy. 71% of entrepreneurs report loneliness is their number one struggle in life. I see that too a lot, right? I don't live with anybody. There's a lot of nights where I'm just like alone working. I've gotten very comfortable with that though. But I would say a lot of people that didn't have the discipline, that didn't go through some of these hard ass things like I did, would have a much harder time at it. But only 13% of men under 35 say they feel confident in their decision making. All the weaknesses just make it harder. I'm going to tell you, please don't think that it's like your fault if you're not rich by this point. You're climbing a very difficult battle that even one generation ago never existed. And if you make it in this world, as long as it takes, maybe you're 40 by the time you make it. Well, you just did probably one of the hardest feats in human history. You climbed uphill against an algorithm that gave you FOMO the whole time, that isolated you when everyone else was hanging out, that made you feel like you were missing out because of social media, that told you had to have success today and made you feel like shit the whole time, that told you weren't working out hard enough to make you have to go harder, and feeling like you weren't physically attractive enough. All these things that you're fighting that one generation ago didn't exist. That's kind of my soapbox today. And I want to let you know that I mean, I'm not really on the pedestal either. I've been here too myself. I was chasing to success, I would say, for a while to feel like I personally mattered. If I thought if I made enough, I'd kind of finally be respected. And I had the ambition to get there, but there's no aim. And so I was surrounded by a lot of fake wins and dopamine, and I was still anxious. I still felt like I wasn't enough. Still kind of happens to me sometimes too, but only when I got around what I would call dangerous men who called me out. This is one example of them, who trained me, who pushed me, did I start to rise. And that's the real meaning behind ascend, because I needed it before anybody else did. And I found a way to crawl out of that pit to get myself to a new level. And that's what I try to help you guys to. Ascend isn't coaching. It's not therapy. It's just forge. It's enough pressure. It's enough stress, but it's enough encouragement to get you out of that pit, to make motion happen, right? Because that's where metal is hardened and strengthened. That's where action and potential energy builds up. It's what lights off dynamite, right? And again, we have that free community. I'd encourage you guys to join that. But without, I don't know, what if you didn't have anybody? Like, what do you think if you never met somebody that was motivated in your life? And I know you have. You said at least a few people. If you didn't meet a single person that was motivated, if every single person you met, let's say your hometown, right? That's kind of that hometown syndrome. Small towns, a lot of people are just, I'm going to go to my community college and maybe just be an associate accountant my whole life. How do you think being stuck in that would have changed your trajectory?
I think about that all the time. If I hadn't have left to the school, obviously, that we went to together, and then done the things I chose to while I was there and set myself up the way I am now, but which, by the way, I attributed all largely to, like you said, people I met that were motivated. It wasn't just me, that, because if it was for me, I wouldn't have done it. But the answer is, like, I just would have been content not knowing there was more, not knowing I was capable of more, never trying to do anything more than just working the job I worked in high school until I got a higher certification to get paid a little bit more. And then you wake up one day and you've been doing it 10 years and it's like, what's the need to change? It's working for me now. I have a place to live. I got food. I'm not really free, but it's comfortable. And I think that's the way that most people live nowadays. And I think that's the standard for living. And I think that social media they paint it like it's a problem, which it kind of is, in my opinion, but they paint it in the wrong way. Like, they paint it as like it really is like a way to get views. Like, oh, if you're doing this, you're missing out. Like, you should be doing more. You should be doing more. You should be doing more. That's always the message sent. But really, it's more like have the confidence in yourself to try at least, or like at least just challenge yourself to like do one thing that seems impossible every year. I think that's like a Japanese philosophy mindset. I don't know who said it. Something I read the other day where, like, in some part of their culture, they believe in this word that basically means doing. It's a concept rather, but
Kaizen?
no, it's not Kaizen. I'll look it up and maybe we can talk about it next time. But this concept of just thinking of one thing in a year that just seems impossible for you, like making your first 10,000 online, deadlifting twice your body weight, completing a Spartan race with no training, doing a marathon for your first time. It's not necessarily, they don't even measure it by whether or not you achieved the goal. Obviously, you're going to keep striving for it. But the reason they do it is for the journey to get there. The reason they do it is because the training, the hours of dedication, the sacrifice it took to at least try should have changed you by the time you're done. So honestly, I don't even remember what I was saying before that, but
I like that. I think we end there. Like, I have more I can say, but it's been long enough, and I think that's a really good point. The only way to pull yourself out is just find something to latch onto. It can be a fucking, I wanna play a Fortnite tournament next week that's gonna require me to like lock in, to stop smoking weed every other night. I don't know what the hell you guys do, but like just something that gets you dedicated. It can be a small something, but then let that something build up over time and just go for it. It's like we lost our going. We used to blow up mountains and like build railroads across the country and like set up skyscrapers with no fucking safety harness. And like now we're like, I spilled my coffee. Like, man, that sucks. What are we doing? Does this donut have powdered sugar? Like, they castrated you without a blade again. They numbed you with apps and sterilized you with comfort. But now we can actually take that back. And it's like, stop losing hope. There's people that have already done it, people that are striving for that. Like Anthony said, it's a bold goal, I know, but it feels like you can't get that drive, that testosterone, that maybe even sperm count back, whatever it is. I want to offer Ascend as a free way to do it. Just stay with us on this podcast here as we continue to help you guys grow and with ourselves too. But yeah, Anthony will fitness coach you, whatever it's going to be. And
yeah,
get big.
Since you mentioned it, I'll give a quick plug. But I finally actually have finished the client delivery system for me to actually take on my first few clients that are paid. I've done some free work in the past year, testimonials, because that's always the path to take.
He's moving, guys. It's been a couple months, and you kind of see like these little updates of our life and how we make progress. And Anthony went from like an idea, right? We're just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I just kind of want to do this. And now you have infrastructure now. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I won't even like put on a facade like I hop on these podcasts because I know exactly what I'm doing. Like this is a transformation for me just as much as it is for you.
me too.
The thing is like it's just that it's more like we just want the awareness to be out there. This kind of thing you're searching for in the wrong areas, the wrong avenues does exist. It just doesn't look like what you think it does. It looks a little bit different. And we're not, you know, like Caleb just said, we're not experts. I mean, we know more about the things we're interested in and that we do every day for a living, but you know, it's everyone's growing. Life's kind of just one big experiment, and if it's not one thing, it's the next. But the key is that if you're not doing what it takes to get, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, doing what it actually takes, not what you are being fed that it takes to get to the point you want to be, then you never will. So do something.
Damn, he keeps dropping the heat. I literally have a script here, and he's just like freestyle. I don't know. I'm just gonna break this iPad out of this, but
Send it to me. Actually, I'll use it.
we'll be back. We'll be back next week, like with the two of us. I'll be back in 2 days, you guys. We got the Ascend platform coming. It's gonna be crazy. Anthony and I are working on our own project separate to that. We'll announce it soon. The best place to get this information is in our free community. It's attached to the video here that you're watching. It's in my bio on Instagram. If you're on Rumble, YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is, also in my bio, or just attached below if that's an option for you. Just go click it, check it out. Be in a space. It's not as active as we want it to be yet, but it's compounding, right? The snowball effect, 1% better, one more member every day. And we're building this space where we can drop some really great things to transform your life. And again, it's free because I want to give you guys that value. I have to eventually make money. I'll figure out how to do that later. But for right now, we're just trying to get you guys together and help inspire each other. So I think we're doing pretty good. I don't know. I feel better about myself doing this, and I hope you do too.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope it provides value to somebody out there for sure.
All right, guys, without further ado, Anthony, any last words? Are you good to go?
Good to go.
All right, guys. I'm Caleb Schilke. This is the Ascended Podcast, and as always, I'm rooting for you guys. See you next time.